Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Praptasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam Praptasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam Vande Gurashi Mahaprabhu ke Tana Nitya Gita Vaditramadhyam Manasurasena Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratanama Niramajanado Juktasya Bhaktamsa Neyunjatapi Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavad Prasada Satana Truptan Hari Bhakta Sanghan Kridvaiva Trupte Bhajata Shadeva Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Shiradhikama Davayarapara Madhura Leela Gunarupanamna Shiradhikama Para Madhura Leela Pratikana Danalalopasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Ne kunjayo no rati keli siddhai Jayali bhiri juktit apekshaneya Ne kunjayo no rati keli siddhai Jayali bhiri juktit apekshaneya Tatratidacha Ativalabhasya Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Sachardharitena Shamasta Shastre Ruktastatha Bhataiva Sadhuvi Kintu Prabhoja Priya Eva Tasya Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Jayam Stuvam Stasya Yashashri Sandhyam Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Jayam Stuvam Stasya Yashashri Sandhyam Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Saminiti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Saminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravane Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachatari Shatarine Namaste Saraswati Gauravane Pracharine Nirvishesha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Nityananda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hariyaraya Namah, Krishna Jadavaya Namah, Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah, Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan, Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita, Hare Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raguna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raguna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Radha Nila Madhav Radha Nila Madhav Radhe Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadrama Jaya Sudarshan Chakra Baladeva Subhadrama Jaya Sita Ram Jaya Sita Ram Sita Ram Jaya Lakshmana Numa Jaya Goranitai Gornita Jaya Goranita Jaya Goranita Nitai Gora Haribo 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 Nitai Gora Haribo Jai Vishnupara Paramansa Prabhajakacharya Suttara Sarashi Srimat ISKCON Pratishta Viviti Samstapakacharya Vaishnava Shravani Gaura Priyajana Krishna Prema Bhakti Datta Patita Pavana Divine Grace Abhacharabhina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patita Udhari Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Nanta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Prem se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Jai Paramadayal Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Prema Nama Sankirtane Ka Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinandana Shman Gauranga Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mavaranaya Avatar Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhan Hari Nam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai Yoga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Brihat Midanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopukutna Radha Kunsama Kun Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Brajabhum Vrindavan Mathurdham Ki Jai Dear Lordship Shri Radha Nilamadhava Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Navadvip Eka Chakradham Ki Jai Parama Karuna Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai Shri Purushottama Ketra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladevi Prabhu Srimati Subhadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kanishingare Bhagavan Ki Jai Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Tulsi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Bolo Shri Mati Radharani Ki Jai Shamaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Nitai Gauradi Pramanande Haribo All glories to the assembly bodies All glories to the assembly bodies All glories to the assembly bodies All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga
Namaste Narasimhaya Namaste Narasimhaya Praladaladaine Hiranyakashipurvakshaha Nyakashipurvakshaha Shilatankanakalaye Shilatankanakalaye Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimha To Narsimha Parato Narsimha Yeto Yeto Yami Tato Narsimha To Yeto Yami Tato Narsimha Bahir Narsimha Hrudaye Narsimha Bahir Narsimha Hrudaye Narsimha Narasimhamatim Sharanam Prapadye तव कर कमलवरे नखा अद्भुत शृङ्गार दलित हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गां केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे तव कर कमलवरे नखा अद्भुत शृङ्गार दलित हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गां केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय नरसिंहदेव 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 जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय भक्त प्रहलाद लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय भक्त प्रहलाद लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय भक्त प्रहलाद लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय भक्त जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव श्री विघ्न विनाशक नरसिंहदेव भगवान की भक्त शिरोमणि प्रहलाद महाराज की श्रील प्रभुपाद की
श्री वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रिय के सब सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रारे देवे सतवताय नमः नमः वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रिय के सब सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रारे देवे सतवताय नमः नमः वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रिय के सब सत्य कृष्ण भक्ति प्रारे देवे सतवताय नमः नमः जय श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की
कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो
ये तुम्हारा शरण लोय तारा वंश पूर्ण होय
तुम्हार शरण तारा बंचा पुना
कृपा कोरी करो तारे वृंदावनवासी
तुम्हें कृपा करे करतारे वृंदावन वासी
मोरा ये अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियावा
मोराए विलास कुंजे दियावा
नयने हेरिबो सदा युगल रूपरासी
हमें नायाने सदा जुगल रूपरासी
ये निवेदन दारा सकीरनु गाता करो
हे निवेदनाधार फकीरयन गताकार
सेवाधिकार दिए करो निज दासी
सेवायादि कर दिए करनी जरासी
दीन कृष्ण दासी कहे न मोरा होय
दीन कृष्णदास को नामोरा
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा ये न बासी
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदाई नवासी
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा ये न बासी
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदाई नवासी
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पादे पदे
कानि कानि सा पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादि सा तानि तानि प्राणसन्ति प्रदक्षिण
च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणपदे पदे
तानि तानि च पापानि ब्रह्मत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणपदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणपदे पदे
तानि तानि च पापानि ब्रह्मत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणपदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणपदे पदे
तानि तानि च पापानि ब्रह्मत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणपदे पदे
हरे कृष्ण हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya, Tulsi Maharani Jaya, Tulsi Maharani Jaya, Tulsi Maharani.
जय वृंदे देवी जय वृंदे देवी जय वृंदे देवी जय वृंदे देवी
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya, Vrinda Devi Jaya, Vrinda Devi Jaya, Vrinda Devi.
निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल
Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol.
वृंदा देवी तुलसी महारानी की
Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devi Priyai Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattvatai Namo Namah. Vrindai Tulasi Devi Priyai Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattvatai Namo Namah. Vrindayai Tulasi Devi Priyai Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Sattvatai Namo Namah. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Oh, Tulasi, love of Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always be wholly beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower carry damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant Krishna prays. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govinda. Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Brinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikhastakam Ki Jai. Cheto Darpanamacharam Pamada Bhagni Nivapanam Shri Akariva Chandika Vitaranam Vidya Jivanam Ananda Mudivardhanam Puripadam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatmasnam Param Paravijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Gaudha Nija Sarvashakti Tatra Pitani Amita Smarane Nakala Edadishitava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrishamya Janina Nuraha Trinadapi Sunichena Karodapi Sarishuna Amanina Madalena Kirtaniya Sarari Nadanam Nadanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vaja Gadisha Kamahi Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Bhavatar Bhakti Raitu Kitwai Vainandatanuja Kinkaram Paritamam Vishame Bhavatar Pankaja Titaduli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nanam Galara Shudhaya Varanam Kadagada Vidaya Gira Durakai Chikam Bhutara Savanam Gare Bhavishati Yugaitam Nimishena Chakusha Pravasaitam Shanyayitam Bhavati Sarvam Govinda Virahe Name Aslishavapādaratam pinashtamam Adarshanaar marmahatam karotuva Jata tata bhavidadhatulam pato Mat pranatastu saivana paraha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikhastakam Ki Jai. Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayati Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratisya Namaha. Namo Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutarishmari Bhakti Vedanta Saminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devam Gaurvani Pracharini Nirvishesha Srunnavadi Pachatyari Shatarine. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, repeated birth and death. This Sankirtana moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays, the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested with transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself a Lord and straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause of devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, some rather I am falling in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, Will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? Why will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so, even if he sunders me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally.
Shri Chaitanya Siksastakam Ki Jai. Namah
Namo
Vishnu
Varane
Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutri Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru
There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1.
To blaspheme
Blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2.
To consider names of the demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to independent names of Lord Vishnu.
3.
To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature and pursuance of the Vedic version. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna as imagination. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. Consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in the Vedas as fruit of activities of Karma Kanda. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. To not have complete faith in the chanting of holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now, so for our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, they are just like desire trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpatarabhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Vaishnava Thakur Ki Jai. Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Namaskar. O Nana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Pachakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsa Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatandvitam Tam Sajivam Saidvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahaguna Lalita Shri Vishaka Nivitam Sa Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Guruvani Pucharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Namine Shivasavanavi Devi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vigyana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Guru Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namastate Namaste Guruvani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Abhisidanta Dvantaharine Namo Guru Kishoraya Sakshad Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padamba Jayate Namaha Namo Mahapadmana Lakshitanandanamine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gora Vir Baba Bhumestwam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhoma Sri Jaganatayate Namaha Vanchakalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guru Chase Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhakta Avataram Bhakta Kam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kantas Namostute Tap Gur Mama Manda Matergati Matsarva Swapadambo Jo Radha Madanamo Hano Divya Drindaranya Kalpadumada Ha Shimad Ratnagara Simasanastito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastali Bihi Sevyamana Smarami Shiman Rasarasaram Vivam Siva Tatatastita Karsan Venus Maner Gopinath Kriyeshtana Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanustate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai, Shri Brahma Samiti ki jai, Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chentamani Prakara Satmas Kalpa Vriksha Laksa Brite Susurabhira Vipalinantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambrahma Sevyamanam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Venum Kranandam Atarendra Vastam Tadarhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Visesha Sobam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasatvan Amalya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Jibanga Lalita Nita Prakasam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Pantika Yanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sadurlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastakoti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayo Ratapi Manasomuni Pungamanam Sopyasti Yad Prapadasim Yavichintya Tatve Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chayatam Jagadanda Kotim Yas Jakti Rasti Jagadanda Chaya Yadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusa Suktarya Meva Nigama Pratitaistavanti Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Bhakti Bhavita Bhista Birya Eva Nijarupa Taya Kalabi Koloka Eva Nivisata Kilatma Bhuto Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Deva Hidesu Vilokayanti Yamshama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Yamena Tishtana Navatar Makarod Bhuvanesu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pamam Yo Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagannath Koti Yes Koti Svasesa Vasudadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Asesa Bhutam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Yasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Jaigunya Tad Visaya Vedi Vitayamanam Sattva Valambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Matayamanasurya Praninam Patipalam Smaratam Upetya Lilaya Tena Bhuvanani Jaya Jasram Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namnim Jamni Talechitasya Devi Maheswari Dama Sute Stesu Tite Prabhavani Chaya Vitascha Yena Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Sististate Pralaya Sadhava Sakti Reka Chayevi Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichana Rupam Abhyasya Chitesa Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesi Yoga Sanjayate Naitata Pritakasi Hetu Yasam Bhutama Pitata Samapaitikariat Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Deepar Shri Vidasantaram Abhyupetya Deepayate Vividahetu Samanudharma Yastadrikevi Vishnu Tavaya Bhyati Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narna Vijale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidramananta Jagadroma Suroma Kupa Adhara Sakti Mavalambi Paranswamurtim Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasita Kalamatavalamya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadanata Vishnu Mahansalayasya Kalabhisesu Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Basmanya Tasma Sakalation and Jesu Teja Sriyamkiya Prakatiyata Vitatra Datra Brahmaya Esdish Galanda Patnankata Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yatpada Palava Yugambinadaya Kumbha Dwande Pranama Samayesa Kanadi Raja Vignam Vihantam Almasya Jagatayasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Agnir Mahika Ganama Bumuruti Sascha Kalas Tatman City Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Visanti Cham Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Yaschak Suresa Savita Sagalagrahanam Rajas Master Suramurti the Sesiteja Yasyagaya Brahmati Sambrita Kalachakro Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Dharmota Papa Nichayastapam Si Brahmadi Kita Patakava Jiva Yadata Matri Bhakata Prabhava Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Yastrin Gopama Tavendra Mahoswakarma Bandana Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nida Tikinchita Bhakti Bhajam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Yam Kroda Kamasa Japana Adibiti Vatsaya Moho Guru Vasivya Mahapurete Govinda Madi Purisham Rami Sri Akanta Kanta Paramapurusha Kapatarava Joma Bhumish Chintamani Ganama Itam Amritam Kataga Anam Nadyam Gamanama Pibam Sipriyasaki Chiranandam Jati Parama Pitada Swadhyama Pichasa Yatra Siradi Bihisra Vidisurabi Vyasta Suma Nimesar Dakyuva Vajatina Hirata Samaya Bhajesvita Dvipanta Maham Ilko Kamitiam Vidanta Stasan Takshati Viracha Rakatipa Yeshi Guru Vastika prayers the spiritual masters receiving benedictions from the ocean of mercy. Just as the cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master delivers the material afflicted world by blazing fire of material existence. Offer my respectful based on the Lotus Suite. Such spiritual masters is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing, ecstasy, singing, and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is relishing in mellows of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. Offer my respectful based on the Lotus Suite. Such spiritual masters. Spiritual masters always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engaged his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful based on the Lotus Suite of such spiritual masters. Spiritual masters always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and such. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful based on the Lotus Suite of such spiritual masters. Spiritual masters always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conscious capacity of Radhika Madhava. They and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful based on the Lotus Suite of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna. Conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan. I offer my most humble based on the Lotus Suite of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful based on the Lotus Suite of such spiritual master. As a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of spiritual master, I receive the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, I cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master at least 3 times a day. I should offer my respectful based on the Lotus Suite of my spiritual master, his divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantha Raja Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3, Chapter 6, verse number 39. Ato Bhagavato Maya Mayinam Apimohini Yat Swayam Chatmavartmatma Naveda Kim Utapare. Ata, therefore, Bhagavata, godly, Maya, potencies, Mayinam, of the jugglers, Api, even, Mohini, enchanting, Yat, that which, Swayam, personally, Cha, also, Atmavartma, self-sufficient, Atma, self, Na, does, not, Veda, no, come, Kim, what, Uta, to speak of, Apare, others. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The wonderful potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is bewildering even to the jugglers. That potential power is unknown even to the self-sufficient Lord. So it is certainly unknown to others. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The froggish philosophers and mundane wranglers in science and mathematical calculation may not believe in the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality Godhead, but they are sometimes puzzled by the wonderful jugglery of man and nature. Such jugglers and magicians of the mundane world are actually puzzled by the jugglery of the Lord in His transcendental activities. But they try to adjust their bewilderment by saying that it is all mythology. There is, however, nothing impossible or mythological in the supreme omnipotent person. The most wonderful puzzle for the mundane wranglers is that while they remain calculating the length and breadth of the unlimited potency of the Supreme Person, his faithful devotees are set free from the bondage of material engagement simply by appreciating the wonderful jugglery of the Supreme in the practical field. The devotees of the Lord see the wonderful dexterity in everything with which they come in contact in all circumstances of eating, sleeping, working, etc. A small banyan fruit contains thousands of small seeds, and each seed holds the potency of another tree, which again holds the potency of many millions of such fruits as causes and effects. So the trees and the seeds engage the devotees in meditation about the activities of the Lord, while the mundane wranglers waste time in dry speculation and mental concoction, which are fruitless in both this life and the next. In spite of their pride in speculation, they can never appreciate the simple potential activities of the banyan tree. Such speculators are poor souls destined to remain in material in matter perpetually. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai. The wonderful potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is bewildering even to the jugglers. That potential power is unknown even to the self-sufficient Lord, so it is certainly unknown to others. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we shouldn't misinterpret this verse as saying that Krishna doesn't know his powers or his knowledge. The reason it says that even he doesn't know it is in the sense that because in the spiritual world there is this competition between measurement and increment. So the measurement, every second Krishna's knowledge and his powers are increasing. So therefore, once we measure something, immediately we have to measure again. So in that sense, he doesn't know. But it doesn't mean he doesn't know. It simply means that because it's always increasing, there is a new calculation that has to be made. So, for example, and I've explained this before, we are all co-existent with Krishna as far as eternity is concerned. We have the same eternity of our soul as Krishna does because we are part and parcel of Krishna. So he is the supreme soul, we are the minute souls. So we're coexistent as far as the soul is concerned, but we're not coexistent as far as knowledge and power is concerned, because Krishna's knowledge and power is always increasing. So we can never be equal to or greater than the Lord. We will always be subordinate to the Lord. Okay, so once we understand that, that's good. Now I want to go over something that was explained yesterday, because it's an extremely profound point that requires more understanding. And that is where it says in yesterday's purport, in the end of the first paragraph, or near the end of the purport, no, it's the beginning of the second paragraph. It is said in the Brahma Samhita that the mental speculator may fly through the sky of speculation with the velocity of the mind or the wind for thousands of millions of years, and still he will find it inconceivable. Okay, now this is a very profound statement. It's a paraphrase of Brahma Samhita 5:34. Pantastukoti satavatsara sampragamyo vayoratapi manasomari pungamanam sopyastiyat prapadasim yavichintya tattve govindamadi purisham tamaham bhajami. So this is 5:34. What does it say? Well, the translation in the Brahma Samhita, which was written by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, says, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration or by the Gyanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane extending over thousands of millions of years. Okay, now that's the translation by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But a paraphrased translation by Srila Prabhupada is, it is said in the Brahma Samhita, meaning 534, that the mental speculator, so Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur refers to them as the Gyanis, who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman. Okay, your Prabhupada says the mental speculator may fly through the sky of speculation with the velocity of the mind or the wind for thousands of millions of years, and still he will find it inconceivable. So I made a list, I'll read it to you tomorrow, of things scientists are claiming that they can do that are impossible to achieve, according to Brahma Samhita and Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Impossible to achieve. In other words, they're simply wasting their time and your money trying to do something that's impossible. But why did they do that? It's because of the money. They promise you they're going to stop death. It's never never happened yet, and it never will happen. Right? They promise you we're going to go and establish communities on Moon or on Mars. Both impossible things to do. We're going to solve all problems with vaccines and medical research. Impossible to do. Right? So we see there's a whole list of them. I'm not going to go through them now. I'll go through them tomorrow. They're promising to do things that are impossible to achieve. Now this verse, 534 Brahma Samhita, is explaining something that's impossible. You could travel for millions of years at the speed of light, which is, we know, is 186,000 plus miles per second. You can travel for hundreds and millions of years, and still you would not reach the tip of the toe of Krishna. Now, let's see what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati says in his purport. The attainment of the lotus feet of Govinda consists in the realization of unalloyed devotion. In other words, Bhaktisiddhanta is saying you can only do this, meaning reach Krishna in the spiritual world, by pure devotional service, not by traveling in some kind of a spaceship at the speed of light for millions of years. Right? By the way, we already studied this. It would take 2.6 billion years to come to the end of the visible universe, which is only 5% of the universe, right? And this is a statistic given by scientists. So you can only reach the edge of the visible universe, which is only 5% of the universe, if you travel for 2.6 billion years. Now, who's going to live 2.6 billion years? You tell me. See, it's all ridiculous. So it says, the attainment of the lotus feet of Govinda consists in the realization of unalloyed devotion. The kaivalya. Now, kaivalya is a very nice word to learn. It means the achieving the Brahman effulgence. Right? This is what the speculator, empiricist, not empiricist, but the speculators, or the Gyanis, are trying to do. They're trying to reach the Brahmajyoti, right? It's the technical word for it is kaivalya. The kaivalya, realized non-alternative state. Okay, so Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is referring to the Brahman effulgence as the realized by Mayavadis and speculated and spiritual speculators realize non-alternative state. In other words, what does he mean by non-alternative? It is not the same as the supreme lokas such as Vaikuntha and Goloka. They claim it's the only final destination. So there's no other alternative for them to go to Vaikuntha or Goloka. So the Kaivalya, realized non-alternative state, which is attained by the Astanga yogis by practicing trance for thousands of millions of years, and a state of merging into the non-differentiated impersonality of Godhead, beyond the range of limitation attained by non-dualists after a similar period passed in distinguishing between the spiritual and the non-spiritual, and eliminating things of the limited sphere, one after another, by the formula not this, not that, or neti neti in Sanskrit, are simply the outskirts of the lotus feet of Krishna and not the lotus feet themselves. The long and short of the matter is this Kaivalya, or merging into the Brahman, constitutes the line of demarcation between the world of limitation, meaning the material world, and the transcendental world. For unless we step beyond them, we can have no taste of the variegatedness of the transcendental sphere. These conditions are the simple absence of misery arising from mundane affinity, but are not real happiness or felicity. In other words, because the mind bodies will never reach real happiness, they will all fall down. They will reach the position of no longer suffering because they rise above the influence of the three modes of material nature, but they do not feel any ananda because they deny the existence of Krishna, the Supreme Personality Godhead, of Vaikuntha, where there's no misery, and Goloka, where it's the pure love for Krishna, without any fetters, without any rules and regulations or rituals. So they're not going to come even close to such transcendental bliss. If the absence of misery be called a bit of pleasure, then also that bit is very small and of no consequence. In other words, whatever, after millions of years of meditating and denying this thing and that thing, they're not going to get anything substantial. So it's a real waste of time. As it says in Bhagavad Gita, 12th chapter, verse number 5. Let's see what it says, what Krishna says. See, everything is in the Bhagavad Gita, and it's explained in more depth in the Srimad Bhagavatam and Brahma Samhita. So it says, 12.5. Kleso dikaritas te sam avyakta shakta chetasam. Avyakta hi gatir dukam dehadvabir avapyate. 12.5. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. So, in other words, you're wasting your time if you become a Mayavadi. Right? And even if you attain, which is doubtful, but even if you do attain entrance into the Brahmajyoti, you're definitely going to fall down because you don't accept that there's anything beyond that. That's what the Mayavadi says, nothing beyond Brahman effulgence. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur continues. He says, for unless we step beyond them, meaning the demarcation line or the line where the world of limitation, meaning the material world, and the transcendental world, so that line between the two, unless you step beyond that line, for unless we step beyond them, we can have When he says them, he means the material world and the line separating the material world from the spiritual world. We can have no taste of the variegatedness of the transcendental sphere. In other words, in the Brahma Jyoti, there's no variegatedness. But in Vaikuntha and the spiritual world, there is, just like there is in the material world. But in the material world, all the variegatedness is a perverted reflection of the variegatedness in the spiritual world. So therefore, you don't really get any benefit from that either. You always will end up being frustrated, seeking out sense gratification in the material world. Why? Because it's a perverted reflection. Now let me explain again one more time. What is a perverted reflection? Perverted reflection, perverted means it's upside down. It's not right side up. And it's a reflection in darkness. Now, what is a reflection in darkness? There's an example of it in the material world. If you're driving your car at night and it's very dark and you look left through the window on your left-hand side, you'll see a reflection of yourself. But it has to be dark. It has to be a dark. You can also see it in your windshield if it's really dark. Right? In other words, there's a little bit of light coming from, let's say, a street lamp on the other side of the street, right? Or a little bit of light in your car. So if you look like this at the window to your left, you'll see your reflection. That is a reflection in darkness. And it's completely false in this sense. There's no substance to it. I mean, yeah, you're real, but the reflection you're seeing is not real, right? I mean, it's something, but there's no substance to it, right? So that's the way we're seeing the material world. We're seeing a reflection in darkness. Now, that's a little confusing. How can you see something in darkness? Well, because that is the nature of the material world. that what we're seeing is, we're not seeing it right side up, we're seeing it upside down, so it's perverted. And number two, it's a reflection in darkness, so it's something that's illusory. Just like when you see water on an asphalt road in the summertime when it's really hot. Well, you're seeing something due to refraction. By the way, did anyone do their homework the other day to look up refraction? Yeah, go ahead, read what it says. You have to understand what refraction means. Due to very hot weather that heats up the asphalt.
Reflect.
Yeah, it heats up the asphalt, and what happens? It bends the light when it goes from when this is in the case of asphalt. There's also other reasons why light bends, right? But in this specific instance of seeing water in the distance on a hot day on an asphalt road, the sun that's very hot that day will heat the asphalt, and because it heats the asphalt, it heats the air just above the asphalt, right? And therefore, it bends the light of the sun. It comes, so the light of the sun is coming down at an angle, right? By the way, I don't think you will see it at 12 o'clock. You would see it at another time of the day. So the sunlight comes down, hits the asphalt, bounces back and heats the air above the asphalt, because the asphalt gets hotter than the air, right? So it bounces back, and when it bounces back, it comes at your eyes at another angle, right? So you don't actually see the asphalt, you see what looks like water on top of the asphalt. It's a mirage. It's not a real thing, right? But it looks real. Right? So you've all probably seen this, right?
Yes.
Right. So now there are other situations in which the light bends. Like, for example, if you put a pencil in a glass of water, you see that it looks like the pencil is bent, right? Although you take it out, it's not bent. Again, that's due to this mirage, this bending of light. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, there I'll read. It's a little bit bigger, but refraction is the bending of light. It
Okay, that's the main point.
Yeah, that's it. Starts with that. Refraction is the bending of light. It also happens with sound, water, and other waves, as if as it passes from one transparent substance into another. This bending by refraction makes it possible for us to have lenses, magnifying glasses,
So your
prisms,
lens, you have either concave or convex.
convex lenses. Yeah,
That's another thing. We'll get things because
Yeah.
that corrects the imperfection of your eyes. Sometimes your eyes don't focus.
yeah.
So to correct it, they can give you a convex or concave.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Even our eyes depend upon this bending of light. Without refraction, we wouldn't be able to focus light onto our retina. Changes of speed causes change of direction. Light refracts whenever it travels at an angle into a substance with a different refractive index, optical density. This change of direction is caused by a change in speed. For example, when light travels from air into water, it slows down, causing it to continue to travel at a different angle or direction. The amount, and then it's little bit detail. The
Okay,
amount.
that's enough.
Yeah.
Get the idea. Right. You see, we learn everything if you read Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? You learn science. You learn metallurgy. You learn chemistry. You learn everything if you read Srimad Bhagavatam with the help of bona fide speakers. You'll learn everything, you know, material and spiritual, and correctly, not like nonsense schools that are teaching things false. Okay. So, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur continues. For unless we step beyond them, meaning the material world itself and the line separating the material world from the spiritual world, we can have no taste of the variegatedness of the transcendental sphere. In other words, you have to come at least to Vaikuntha. You have to cross the line into Vaikuntha to be able to see this real variegatedness, not the false, perverted variegatedness of the material world, the real variegatedness of and transcendental bliss. Real variegatedness of the transcendental sphere. These conditions are the simple absence of misery. In other words, merging into Brahman is the simple absence of misery arising from mundane affinity, meaning mundane attachment, but are not real happiness or felicity. Felicity is a big word that means happiness. If the absence of misery be called a bit of pleasure, then also that bit is very small and of no consequence. It is not sufficient to destroy the condition of materiality. So, see, he makes these big words, materiality. So it's saying the Mayavadi, even if he merges into Brahman, it's not enough to get rid of these material desires. He can suppress the material desires, but he won't get rid of them. See? But the real gain to the jiva is the eternal existence in a self-realized state. So when you become self-realized, and now the term self-realized does not simply mean, oh, I am under pradeshi. That's not self-realization, right? The word self-realized in context of Prabhupada's purports and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's purports is you understand the difference between matter and spirit. You understand the difference between your individual soul and Paramatma. You understand that the Paramatma, your Jivatma, and the entire material creation is coming from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is called self-realization. It's not just, oh, I come from Andhra Pradesh, that's who I am. That's not self-realization. You have to understand basically 4 levels. The material world, your jiva, Paramatma, which is present within the heart, and then Krishna himself, who's the source of Paramatma, the jiva, and the entire material creation, okay, as well as the spiritual creation, right? Aham sarvasya prabhava matak smart matak visyati. So, in other words, he's saying, I am the source of everything material and spiritual. Anyone who knows this becomes engaged in my devotional service and comes to me. Aham sarvasya prabhava matak sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddhabhava samanvitaha. Right? So, this can be attained only by the grace of unalloyed devotion, which is essentially chit, or transcendental in character. For this end, abstract and uninteresting mental speculation is no. For this end, abstract and uninteresting mental speculation is of no avail. So, in order to attain what? Unalloyed devotional service, which is transcendental, the abstract and uninteresting mental speculation is of no avail, meaning it has no value at all. You'll never reach that state of transcendental existence. Right? And that's what's basically being said in 12.5 also. It's just trouble. You're just engaging in troublesome things without really reaching the real goal of life. Okay, so that is one point I wanted to make. Now I have a second major point, which is it's an interesting picture. This is me with two very famous people. They're both big movie stars. And that day we were doing Sankirtan, and these movie stars came out to talk to us, and because of that, they put us in a movie. So this guy's name is Michel Piccoli, and the other guy, I forget his name, but they're both big actors in France, right? And then there's another one, lady named Catherine Deneuve, that I met also. That was when we were performing in there, and she's like Marilyn Monroe, very the number 1 top actress in France, and they got us to perform Sankirtan in the movie. Very well. I can tell that story some other time. It's very interesting. Okay, so here in the oh boy, did I lose my place? No. So Prabhupada writes, let me see if I lost my place here. 1 second. One second. God, I got so excited I lost my place. 1 second. Wow, it's terrible. Okay, we're going to have to come back to this. Anyway, what I was going to show you was a perfect prayer that we should all say every day, besides chanting Hare Krishna.
Is that Krishna book, Maharaj?
Yes. It's in personified Vedas. Okay, I'm not going to find it.
Maybe I can search online and find the.
Maybe. Wow, I don't know why I lost it. Okay, anyway, there are other things we can discuss, so. Yeah, so yesterday we were discussing also what is pure devotional service. So continuing that frame, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, 12th chapter, verses 6 and 7. Ye tu sarvani karmani, mai sanyasamatpara, ananyanaiva yogena mam dhyayanta upasate, te samaham samudarta, mrityu samsara sagarat, bhavami nachirat parta, maya vaisitam chetasam. So this verse says, these two verses, but those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me, and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service, and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Prita, for them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. Now, if you, just like yesterday, what did we learn? We learned the verse, Tasmat Kali Sumam Anusmara Yudicha Mayapita Mano Vidirham. Yes. So therefore, that verse is very important. But here is another two verses that are extremely important. Right? And it says, it is explicitly stated here that the devotees are very fortunate to be delivered very soon from material existence by the Lord. In pure devotional service, one comes to the realization that God is great and that the individual soul is subordinate to Him. His duty is to render service to the Lord, and if he does not, then he will render service to Maya. Wow. Very interesting points. It is explicitly stated here that the devotees are very fortunate to be delivered very soon from material existence by the Lord. So here's a guarantee. Just like there are certain things that scientists claim that are impossible to achieve. But yet, there are other things, such as the greatest benediction that anyone could ever achieve, that is being liberated eternally from the cycle of birth and death. It's rather easy. And it's very quick. So, it is explicitly stated here that the devotees are very fortunate to be delivered very soon from material existence by the Lord. In pure devotional service, one comes to the realization that God is great and that the individual soul is subordinate to Him. Now, that's the whole purpose of reading Shastra, to understand that we could never be equal to or greater than Krishna. We're always subordinate to Him. Once you accept that you're subordinate to someone, it's the beginning of humility, that you could never emulate someone, this other person, that you're always subordinate to them. Well, either you become humble or you become envious, let's put it like that in the material world. But when you understand that it's impossible to be equal to or greater than Krishna, then you must surrender. Just like, let's say there's a championship fight between two people, right? And so one guy KOs the other, so he becomes the world champion in his weight, so heavyweight fighter. Okay, so then they have a second fight again. Let's say a couple of years later, and again the same person defeats the other person. So eventually the other person stops trying to think they can defeat the champion, and they accept that, you know, they're humbled. They accept that they can never actually beat this person. Right? So when you accept that someone is greater than you, then that's the beginning of humility. Right? Well, we should accept this on the statements of the great acharyas and Krishna himself. It's impossible to be equal to or greater than Krishna. But the Mayavadis don't believe that. And the envious people don't believe that. Like Sisupalo didn't believe that. Kamsa didn't believe that. Ravana didn't believe that, right? So what happened to them? They were all frustrated and defeated. So if we accept that Krishna, we could never be equal to or greater than Krishna. We're always subordinate. And number two, that we're part and parcel of Krishna. Then we understand what our real duty is. That's to serve Krishna. But you have to accept those points. So those are the points that should be taught to your children. That it's impossible to be greater than or equal to Krishna. That we'll always be subordinate. And not only we're subordinate to him, we come from him. We're part and parcel of Krishna. So that is our natural position, to be engaged in devotional service. Our natural position is not to be engaged in sense gratification, not to be employed by demons and associating with demons. Our real position is to always be associating with devotees and to always be engaged in devotional service. If you associate always with devotees, you will always be engaged in devotional service. You know, they have to be good devotees also, not nonsense people. Right? So then it says, as stated before, the Supreme Lord can be appreciated only by devotional service. In other words, you can only understand Krishna by devotional service, not by speculation, not by studying this book and that book. It's by hearing. Shinvata swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana hridyantaksta upadrani vidunati suhit satam. One who hears about Krishna from Vedic literature or hears about him directly through the Bhagavad Gita engages in genuine pious activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who's dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. Say, Nastapresu abhadresu nityam bhagavata seva bhagavati utamasloke bhakti bhavati naistaki. So we should always be engaged in nityam bhagavata sevaya. There's two Bhagavats. There's the book Bhagavat and the person Bhagavat. So we should be associating with both eternally. Nityam Bhagavata, not Bhagavata Saptaha. Bhagavata Saptaha is complete nonsense. What can you learn of the Bhagavatam by listening 7 days? Or someone said, but Parikshit Maharaj listened 7 days. Yeah, are you Parikshit Maharaj? No. You're not going to understand anything in 7 days. You'll understand a little bit, but it's mostly entertainment, right? So you don't really remember much anyway. So it has to be Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. You should be always serving the person Bhagavat and the book Bhagavat. So, as stated before, the Supreme Lord can be appreciated only by devotional service. Therefore, one should be fully devoted. One should fix his or her mind fully on Krishna in order to achieve him. One should work only for Krishna. It does not matter in what kind of work one engages, but that work should be done only for Krishna. Okay, so when it says it does not matter what kind of work one engages in, that means whatever work you're engaging in, you should offer the result to Krishna. Right? So let's say you're a tree cutter. Right? I hope not, but anyway, let's say you're cutting trees. So with the money, so there's two ways of serving Krishna. One is directly and the other is indirectly. So when you earn your salary from cutting down trees, then you should give at least 50% while you're still married and 100% when you take sannyas. So now you say, well, 50%, how am I going to support myself? Well, no, that's not the point. The point is, if you actually do it, you'll see that Krishna will help you so that you can continue doing it. Now, is that true? Yes, it is. Okay, let's say, well, look, I can't do it right now. Let me start with 10%. That's what the Catholics do. They're obliged by the church to give 10% every year of whatever they earn to the church. It's called tithing, Tithing. And then there's other religions that have a percentage that you have to give, right? But Krishna consciousness is 50%. So if you can't give 50%, well, give whatever you can. But eventually, you will be able to give 50% if you want to achieve that level, because Krishna will help you. And then if you, the day you take sannyas, it's 100%. You give everything. Okay, so one should work only for Krishna. It does not matter in what kind of work one engages, but that work should be done only for Krishna. That is the standard of devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada, he worked in, he had his own pharmacy, right? And he was a businessman. So, and he was donating regularly to the his guru's movement, the Gaudiya Math, and he helped build a temple in Mumbai and also Prayag. In fact, the name of his pharmacy was Prayag. I think it was Prayag Pharmacy, something like that. Mm-hmm. And you know who was his client? Nehru was his client. He used to come and buy things from him. Yeah. The devotee does not desire any achievement other than pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His life's mission is to please Krishna, and he can sacrifice everything for Krishna's satisfaction, just as Arjuna did in the Battle of Kurukshetra. The process is very simple. Okay, he's saying he can sacrifice everything for Krishna's satisfaction. That's what Arjuna did. He sacrificed everything, right? Just as Arjuna did in the Battle of Kurukshetra. The process is very simple. One can devote himself in his occupation and engage at the same time in chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Such transcendental chanting attracts the devotee to the personality of Godhead. Now, this sounds backwards. Attracts the devotee to the personality of Godhead. Usually it says attracts the personality of Godhead to me, right? No. By chanting Hare Krishna, you will become gradually attracted to Krishna, right? Krishna is already attracted to you. He's in your heart. This Paramatma. How much closer can he get than that, right? But we're not attracted to Krishna. So the way to become attracted to Krishna is by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra very seriously every day. Tasmat sarve sukale sumam anusmara yudicha mayarpatamano vidyamam evaisasiya samsaya. Okay, so that verse is very important because that's the way we should say hello. Don't just say hello. Tasmat sarve sukale sumam anusmara yudicha mayarpatamano vidyamam evaisasiya samsaya. So, 7th chapter, Bhagavad Gita. Huh? 8.7, yeah, I'm sorry. 8.7. So, what does he say? Yeah. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna. First line. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna. Go ahead.
Therefore, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna.
And at the same time, carry out your prescribed duty
At the same time, carry out your prescribed
duties
of fighting.
of fighting.
And at the same time, carry out your prescribed duties. Carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
And at the same time, carry out your prescribed duties of fighting.
Yeah. And at the same time, carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
At the same time, carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
And at the same time, carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
And at the same time, carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna.
Therefore, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna
and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna,
Therefore, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna
and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
And at the
and
same
at the
time
same
carry
time
out your
carry out your
prescribed duty of fighting.
This time now. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna
and
and
at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me,
With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and diligence fixed on me.
with your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me.
With your
With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and diligence fixed on me.
fixed upon me.
With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me.
With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me.
Therefore, Arjuna, I'm sorry. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time perform your prescribed duties, prescribed duty of fighting.
Therefore, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
Therefore, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting, and with your
With your activities
I'm sorry.
dedicated to me and your mind.
Yeah. With your mind dedicated to me, I'm sorry. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me. Okay.
With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always. Okay, 1 second. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and perform
At the same time.
At the same time.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. At the same time. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time perform your prescribed duty of fighting. And then it says, with your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me. Okay, so let's try the whole thing. Therefore, Arjuna,
You should always think of me in the form of
Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
with your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time perform your prescribed duty of fighting. And then it says, okay, with your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me. Okay, go ahead, try and say that. Therefore, Arjuna,
Arjuna, you should always
Now you
think
should
of me
always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and
at the same time.
and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting.
With
By
With
with
your-
your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me. Okay, go ahead. Therefore, Arjuna,
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duties of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always, therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting with your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me. Okay, one more time.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me as a form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out all prescribed duties of fighting.
With your
At the
actions
same
dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your mind and intelligence, with your activities dedicated to me, and your mind and intelligence fixed on me. Okay. You will attain me without doubt. All right.
You will attain me
You will attain me without doubt.
Okay, so memorize this for tomorrow. Okay. All right. Okay, so then the Supreme Lord herein promises that without delay he will deliver a pure devotee, thus engaged from the ocean of material existence. So Krishna is promising that he'll deliver us from the cycle of birth and death and get us out of this ocean of material existence. Those who are advanced in yoga practice can willfully transfer the soul to whatever planet they like by the yoga process. And others take the opportunity in various ways, but as far as a devotee is concerned, it is clearly stated here that the Lord himself takes him. The devotee does not need to wait to become very experienced in order to transfer himself to the spiritual sky. In other words, you don't have to perform the traditional way of becoming liberated through either jnana or Ashtanga yoga, which are both extremely difficult. Simply engaging in devotional service, Krishna makes it easy for you, and he will personally come and take you back to Godhead. What more could you ask for? He's making it easy, and he's going to personally come to take you back to Godhead. The devotee does not need to become very experienced in order to transfer himself to the spiritual sky. In the Varaha Purana, this verse appears, and it says, the purport of Namami Paramam Sthanam, the purport of this verse is that a devotee does not need to practice Ashtanga yoga in order to transfer his soul to the spiritual planets. The responsibility is taken by the Supreme Lord himself. He clearly states here that he himself becomes the deliverer. A child is completely cared for by his parents, and thus his position is secure. Similarly, a devotee does not need to endeavor to transfer himself by yoga practice to other planets. Rather, the Supreme Lord, by his great mercy, comes at once, riding on his bird carrier Garuda, and at once delivers the devotee from material existence. Although a man who has fallen in the ocean may struggle very hard and may be very expert in swimming, he cannot save himself. But if someone comes and picks him up from the water, then he is easily rescued. Similarly, the Lord picks up the devotee from this material existence. One simply has to practice the easy process of Krishna consciousness and fully engage himself in devotional service. Any intelligent man should always prefer the process of devotional service to all other paths of yoga. Okay, I will stop right there. This is a lot to digest. You should read this purport, 12, 5, and 6. 6 and 7, I'm sorry, 12, 6, and 7 in Bhagavad Gita for tomorrow. And memorize the English purport. It's not the English translation. English translation of the verse, Tasmat Sarva Sakali Su, plus the purport, Haribol. Actually, no, it's the English translation. I'm sorry, it's not the purport. We'll come to the purport later on. Haribol, are there any questions?
So we just connected the 12, 6, 7
to 8-7. So here,
Yes.
basically, it's the elaborate verse of the same thing, right?
Which one? Oh, it's 6 and 7?
12:6-7 is this kind of more detail on the 8-7.
Yes. Yes, definitely. It's all about pure devotional service. So if we learn what is pure devotional service, then we know what we're aiming for. But if we don't learn what pure devotional service is, then we'll be flapping our wings and going nowhere. Okay, so we'll have art group. Oh yes, Prabhu.
So Maharaj, about this verse 8.7, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna. I've been trying to meditate on this translation a little bit, Maharaj.
Yes.
So the question is, and I want to take your guidance on how you do it. Is it really possible to think of Krishna like every second, or is it that you think of Krishna before you begin an activity, or sometime middle of the activity and end of the activity?
It's both. In other words, if your goal in life is to please Krishna, then you're always thinking of him by everything you're doing. I'm going to work every day, but my real goal of doing this is to please Krishna. Therefore, I have to do it in the way the acharyas have recommended, not in the way I think whimsically. Right. So, if the acharyas say 50%, then it should be 50%. Now, can you do that? Well, maybe you can't do it today, but you should strive for it. See, and then you'll see that Krishna will help you do it because you're striving for it. If you don't strive for it, I mean, in the beginning you do it incrementally, but eventually you'll be able to do it. Just like you're not good at playing basketball, but if you practice every day, eventually you'll be proficient at it. You're not good at playing a violin, but if you get a teacher and you practice, you'll eventually be able to play the violin, right? So if you say, oh, that's impossible, I'll never be able to do it. No, you're limiting yourself. Of course you can do it. If somebody like you became Brahma in the next age, it's because he didn't think it was impossible, right? Because someone else named Brahma right now has attained that position. He's a jiva like you and me, right? So if someone says, well, you have to give 50%, you say, oh, no, it's impossible. Well, yeah, it might be impossible today, but if you aim for it, just like we're aiming to become pure devotees. Now, right now, it might be impossible, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. It's just that you need the training and the encouragement, and then you'll be able to do it because you have the potential. That's the human form, is the potential to become a pure devotee, right? So just because something seems impossible today does not mean that it's impossible. It's just that we need the training. And we need to put the time and the effort. Okay? Haribol. Let her.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
The three modes of material nature, the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance, do we have them in the spiritual world as well?
No.
So,
Do you have transcendental goodness in the spiritual world? Suddha Bhakta.
So there is
not just goodness. It's okay. Suddha Sattva, transcendental goodness, as opposed to just Sattva. Sattva guna, Raja guna, Tamas guna, right? So in spiritual world is Suddha Sattva, transcendental goodness.
so
There's
how
no influence of passion and ignorance, and it's not mundane goodness. It's transcendental goodness. Okay, go ahead.
The question is, how do we consider Mayavadis in that case? Are they materially good enough to understand that we are detached to these things, or we put them in the mode of ignorance where they are not able to see the higher
No,
picture?
they are spiritualists. Prabhupada says they're also spiritualists because they're aiming for something spiritual called Brahmajyoti. But they're not pure devotees because. Now, okay, let's make a difference between a real bona fide impersonalist and a Mayavadi. There's a difference. The bona fide impersonalist does not say there's no Vaikuntha, there's no Goloka, there's no Krishna, Supreme Personality. They say, I don't know. The door is still open for them to know. Right? The Mayavadis say there's nothing beyond Brahman. So that's why they're actually aparadis. They're worse than demons because they will directly insult Krishna. Now the demons may or may not directly insult Krishna, but they'll do demoniac things, right? Or there are some demons that reject Krishna also. But the Mayavadi clearly rejects Krishna and Vaikuntha and Goloka and rejects the material world. It says it's all illusion, it's not real. So he says there's only Brahman. Okay, so Brahman is spiritual. So they're considered spiritualists and they'll engage in tapasya, maybe even more tapasya than we do, right? But they only attain the, not even the tip of the toe. They don't actually touch the tip of the toe. They're right before it. So they haven't actually crossed the line because we're rejecting Vaikuntha. And even if they do attain Brahman realization, they will fall down because they're rejecting anything else. They say it doesn't exist. So as soon as we say it's impossible, we're limiting ourselves because it's, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam is saying it is possible. What do you mean it's impossible? It exists. And that's where you came from. Therefore, Krishna is going through all this trouble to bring you back. If you didn't come from there, he wouldn't spend the time trying to get you to come back. See? Because we come from the spiritual world, Krishna wants you back. That's where you belong. We don't belong in the material world. So all these things you understand little by little, right? And once you understand it, then you know this is who I really am. I'm part and parcel of Krishna. I'm not part and parcel of the material world. So then you adjust your lifestyle to attain that goal. Okay. The Mayavadis they'll make an adjustment to free themselves from the cycle of birth and death, but then they'll fall down because they don't think there's anything beyond that. So as soon as you reject something that is real, that means that you'll never really attain the perfection of life. So Vaikuntha is more real than the material world, and Goloka is even more real. Well, if you reject those things, then you'll never be able to achieve them. So everything depends on what you accept from the statements of Krishna himself and the acharyas. If you accept everything, then you'll succeed completely. If you accept only part of it, then you'll only achieve that, and eventually you'll fall down because you don't feel full bliss. So you might have sat. We all already have sat, right? You cannot stop that. You cannot destroy it. Right? But you won't necessarily have chit, and you definitely not have ananda. So you might have some chit, right, knowledge, but not full knowledge, and you'll definitely not even experience ananda, which means you're going to fall down because you get bored, you get frustrated, you'll fall down. Unless we attain that the step of ananda, and now ananda was never equal with Krishna, but we can participate in it, right? Then you would never want to come back to the material world again. So if one time we fell down, but if you go through all the trouble to go back, and you actually now really appreciate the unending Ananda, you would never come back again. Never. You never make that mistake again. Haribol.
Thank you, Maharaj. That makes more sense because when you mentioned Kaivalya, even Sage Patanjali in Yoga Sutras, there is a Kaivalya Pada.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he never discarded that there is no Goloka.
Yes.
So
No, he talks about Chitti Sakti. He talks about transcendental knowledge and bliss. Right. But the problem with the followers of Patanjali is they use the false definition of what's called I am that, Tatvamasi. They misinterpret that Tatvamasi, and they say I am that. So after going through all that trouble, when they see Paramatma, they say that's me, and then emerge into Paramatma. Whereas Madhvacharya explained that Tatvamasi means I am his.
I am his.
It's not I am that. So that means that when you actually see Paramatma, you don't say I am Paramatma. You say, I am his. I belong to him. Therefore, I have to continue devotional service. See how one little word, that or his, is a world of difference, right? So it's very easy to misinterpret things, and that is an enemy. That's, if there is a devil, it's misinterpretation. Haribol.
Haribol.
Okay, so let's have Guru Puja. This is unbelievable. I can't find this. Okay, I found what I wanted to say. This is, no, in the Prayers of Personified Vedas. My dear Lord, kindly accept me as your student and train me in such a way that I will be able to give up all other processes of self-realization and simply engage in Krishna consciousness devotional service. This is something we should repeat every day. This is called the prayer of the real Shishya, real student.
Which Krishna?
It's in a Krishna book. On my page is 384. My dear Lord, kindly accept me as your student and train me in such a way that I will be able to give up all other processes of self-realization and simply engage in Krishna consciousness or devotional service. Here it is. Haribol.
Chapter, Maharaj?
It's in the chapter. Well, it's in a thing called Prayers of Personified Vedas.
Yeah, that's the 87th chapter.
Yeah, but it's near, not quite the end, but no, it's not near the end. I'll find it where it's in the Krishna book. Okay, go ahead.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
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 Bandhamu Savadana Mate
Mandamuri Savadana
mate
Bandho mui sabadana mate
Jahara prasade vai ye bhava toriya jai
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 Krishna prapti hoy jaha hoy te
Krishna bhakti hoya hoite
Guru mukha padma vakya chite te koriya kya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Akya
Harana kori ho mane asha
Arana Koriya Mane Asha
Harana kori ho mane asha
Arana Koriya Mane Asha
Shri Guru Charane Rati Ese Utamagati
Shri Guru Charane Rati Ese Utamagati
Je Prasad Pure Sarva Asha
Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
Je Prasad Pure Sarva Asha
Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
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 दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित
प्रेम भक्ति जहा होते अविद्या विनाश जाते
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 वेद गाय जहा रचरित
वेद गाय जहा रचरित
वेद गाय जहा रचरित
वेद गाय जहा रचरित
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनार बंधु
गुरु करुणा सिंधु अगम जनार बंधु
लोके ना लोके राजीवाना लोके ना लोके राजीवाना हा हा प्रभु करो दया देह मोरे पाद छाया हा हा प्रभु करो दया देह मोरे पाद छाया ए Bija Gushuk Tribhuvana Prabhupada Patita Pavana Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishnaprastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine
Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishnaprastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Dinamine
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Deshatarine
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadini Vaskatya Desatarine
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Nittai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nittai Gaura Hari Bo.
Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikachaskutara Satarasi Shishimad, His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai, Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath, Shamakunda Radha Kundi Giri Govardhana Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mayapura Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanand. All glories to the assembled divinity, all glories to the assembled divinity, all glories to the assembled divinity, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ma Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Padaya Nirvisesa Sudivadi Paskatya Desatana. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, friend of poor, Lord and Master.